All right, YouTube. We're going to take a look at conservative quote-unquote comedian Steven Crowder here, talking about, well, I don't even know what to talk about, kind of like kind of what I'm doing, but not really following along or stopping what's said behind him, but to kind of comment over Bill Gates' appearance on CNN, talking about coronavirus response. Jump right into this one. Make sure the volume's set.
Bill Gates right now just said we could have been following the advice in January. In January, the World Health Organization, to whom you are the second largest donor outside of the United States as a whole, and the same World Health Organization, Bill Gates, whom you said were the best at handling these kinds of crises throughout the history of mankind, told the world through Twitter that it couldn't be transmitted from human to human contact.
All right. That's a lie, right? That's a flat out lie. So what he's referring to here is January 14th, the World Health Organization put out a what do I call it, press release or whatever, and saying that at this time there's no evidence to support human transmission, right? They didn't have the evidence to support that conclusion, right? It just wasn't available yet. It wasn't there. And that's all that was said, right? So we don't have the evidence here, but if you go into the report further, they said there's it's possible that it does transmit human to human, right? And so he's jumping on is a poorly worded tweet that was sent out with the stuff there. But yeah, they weren't saying human transmission was impossible or didn't happen. It's just they didn't have the evidence to support that it did, right? Or not even that, because they said there's limited stuff when talking about it, like between the family members that ended up with it. But that was January 14th. The WHO, as more information came out in January, said here. So when did they declare it? I think late January or whatever. They said it was a world emergency or up there. Didn't quite get to pandemic yet, because obviously it hadn't become a pandemic yet at that point. But they'll point to and said, well, oh, they dragged their feet, they screwed all this stuff up. And it's like, no, they didn't. They just said, here's the evidence we have at this time, right? And they like to go back and take a question sent to the World Health Organization from Taiwan. Say, well, oh, Taiwan said they knew it transmitted from human to human and stuff at this time and stuff there, so who was covering it up? And it's like, no, they just asked, hey, is there more information, more directives, more stuff here, right? Now, some, for political reasons, are trying to spin it, like even some Taiwan government officials have tried to spin that as, oh, we knew back then. But it's like, if you read the thing, it's, no, we're hearing about this new pneumonia that's not being treated or reacting to treatment that isn't here, is human to human contact and all this other stuff. So it was asking WHO for more information, and WHO at the time just didn't have it. Yeah, it is really bad. Yeah. But I mean, that's the big one, and this is the big lie here as we go through. But we'll talk about some of the other conspiracy theories he brings up.
Let's go to Bill Gates. He looks like an angry Muppet.
He's animated.
You know, it seems.
I was going to say he looks like an albino gecko.
Be clear guidelines.
Well sweatered.
I know we're going to talk about vaccines.
They screen tested him for Geico commercials.
Focused on, but
I mean, this is a comedian, right? This is the so-called comedian who does comedy. I mean, no wonder your comedy career failed, Crowder.
if we get to this point that we're talking about, Bill, with testing and having enough contact tracing, which you say, we should be able to get to these things.
If we use your microchipping, Bill Gates. Let me make sure I bring this up so I have it right, because they'll fact check me if I say microchip. So first off, of course, he said that China did a good job. He trashed.
Yeah. That's not what, there's no microchipping. He's going to bring it up and he's going to be wrong about that, but he's spreading that conspiracy theory around now that the vaccine's going to have a microchip in. I think I responded to, was it a few weeks back, maybe almost a month back now, probably, to Salty Cracker, who's a real conspiratard that was pushing the microchipping and stuff here. But no, contact tracing is just kind of following back who contacted who, so you can limit the spread, right? You can trace everything back. You can get a hold of everybody there and say, hey, we're going to quarantine, right? Get you down here to prevent the spread, right? That's all contact tracing is. But he's going to take this new technology that's being developed and equate it to microchips and stuff like that, and really kind of the conspiracy stuff that's not.
The United States response.
Have a good one, R&D.
He said that the World Health Organization is the best organization in the world at dealing with this stuff. Really? The organization that said it couldn't be transmitted through human to human contact? You Windows 2000 inventing prick! And then he said...
So like I said earlier, he's wrong about that. He's lying about that, and he's going to spin it that way.
That we had no national tracking system, so he praised South Korea. Does anyone else get absolutely terrified when we talk about contact tracing? Like people are worried about like it's like I don't want to. Oh my God, on my iPhone, I don't want to accept cookies. Someone might. I better put a sticky note on it. Contact tracing, so the South Korean government can dox me. Sure, sign me.
Who was doxxed? All right, let me turn it down a little bit. I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah, he has it here. So apologies for the sound. So I'll have to try to edit that in post. But so let me know how it goes here.
Yeah.
Right. People
as long as it keeps me from experiencing, I'll give you all my rights.
Or what?
So there's no doxing in the contact tracing, right? But yeah, he boosts everything way up on his stuff. So sorry about that. Hopefully it sounded a little better after there. But there's no doxing. They're just following up with people that you were in contact with, and they're going back. All right, so you had contact here with so and so here, so we'll go talk to them, who they had contact with, and we'll track it all down. We'll do the testing, all that other stuff, so that we can make sure that it's not spreading all over the place. Right? That's all contact tracing is, and I don't know why conservatives like to go to the big conspiracy theories like this and stealing all this stuff here. Yeah. But so there's that other conspiracy. Now it's going to go into the whole microchip conspiracy that he willfully spreads around. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's just, you don't think the government has access to where you live, right? If you file taxes, do all that other stuff, they have all that information already, right? So who are they doxing and to who?
What is it, the 80% that are asymptomatic or whatever the number is? It's incredibly high. Reg, you can fact check me on that.
I think it's, I've heard anywhere from 25 to 40%.
Okay.
He's been pushing a nationwide shutdown of everything. And then what he wanted to install, let me bring this up from the Scientific American. You guys can bring it up. Contact tracing dye into children. So you can bring it up as an overlay because people can see it. It looks... I mean, look at that. It looks like a chip.
If it functions like a chip, really, it doesn't matter if you're saying a chip or not.
Going into the skin. It's on the research doc here. You see this?
Yeah, that looks like a chip.
And videos were removed for fact checking. So like, Bill Gates wants this like tracking chip. Yeah. Like it's a
So that's not a chip. That's just that's the tool that they use to imprint the dye. Now, if you go through this, a lot of why this technology is being developed is for third world nations and stuff who don't have great bureaucracies to do all the paper stuff here, and so to try to help improve that stuff there, this is why the technology is being developed, right? It's just for places that don't have the government or anything else there to provide the records or even to store the records completely. So when you're trying to pay attention to all this stuff here, it's like, all right, you get a vaccine, they get the dye, the invisible dye, and it's put in. They can say, all right, you have this vaccine or whatever. All right, that's it. That's all it is, right? It's nothing big, nothing. Yeah. But I mean, that's all it is. But they're like, oh, that looks like a microchip. That's just like an injection thing for the dye, right? So when you get the vaccine and stuff. Quantum dot dye that delivered along with the vaccine. So the vaccine comes with this. So this is literally the needle going in, giving you the vaccine, and then you get the bit of the dye that's stored. Right?
Contact. Tell me that doesn't look like a chip.
Yeah.
Wow, for crying out loud. Look at that. So this is, I want to make sure that.
Yeah, how stupid do people have to be to take this seriously? But why you'd want to spread that kind of misinformation and stuff around, right?
I have this right. Hey, actually, can we bring up Reg, the research bandit?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
give me a quick recap of, I remember contact tracing dye, and it looking very much like a chip, and it was specifically to
So his research guy is going to explain it to him here. Right.
provide information. This is what I remember, specifically providing information so that people could know which children had been vaccinated
Right.
and, could star in the next episode of Black Mirror. Reg, do I have that
Wow, he
about
looks-
correct?
Yeah, it's essentially an under the skin tattoo. And it seems to make sense insofar as that you think, well, then you don't need to carry around your vaccination records everywhere with you. But then the problem is that you have this global system of control and tracking people.
Yeah, well,
It's a small price to pay for not having.
I mean, what control and tracking, right? But two, it's not meant for, like here in the West where we have pretty solid record keeping, right? The way it's being developed specifically for third world nations that don't have that yet, or aren't, just structurally aren't set up there, and it'd be something that would potentially be cheaper, more effective to implement right away before you have that stuff, right?
Having to carry papers.
Slight snap.
yeah.
Because
Kill
you
you
couldn't
with
just
convenience.
take a picture of them and keep them in your phone.
Would be brought to bear, and they'd have very clear advice on things
Instead, we're talking about like third world nations is why this technology is being developed, right?
like testing prioritization. So that is a deep set of skills where they're getting input from all the states, but in the entire world, that's the best group of people. There's an opportunity here for them to help with testing prioritization, and I hope they'll
I
seize it.
agree with Sanjay right now.
I know that.
I'm also
with regard
confused as to
China,
what the
sort
hell
of
he's
looking at other
saying.
countries. You don't want.
So just from that here, like I don't have the clip in front of me, but it sounds like it's basically like the bureaucratic infrastructure to handle all the tracking and reporting of data and handle all that stuff on a world stage, not just like so like our CDC, for example, is not set up to track everything around the world, right? To handle all that stuff coming in. That's where the World Health Organization comes, or some other government international body, or even like a NGO, a nonprofit, right? Oh, like if we want to have some fun, if we get through that, if you still want to stick around here later, we can go through Salty Cracker, right? Who I covered in my No Girl Turtle for You video, Red Responds episode. And I did one live stream on here. I didn't quite like my response to it, to another Bill Gates thing. So I didn't put it up on my YouTube channel. I have the video. Maybe it'll go up sometime later there, but we can go dig and deep dive into the kind of crazy, because the guy's blowing up, growing big. I mean, he's about to hit 100,000 subs. And when I responded to him about 6 months ago, he was about 40. So I mean, he's growing pretty rapidly doing this.
To look too much in the rearview
He's the walking
mirror in
Windows
terms of
2000.
what went right or what went wrong there.
We should be
But are
listening to
there
doctors like Bill
some
Gates.
lessons
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, get that guy out.
Well, no, Bill Gates is safe because everything he says goes along with the World Health Organization, including
yeah.
Taiwan what?
flowed from China?
Trusted source.
Yeah, so bringing the conspiracy stuff here, but I hate this argument. I was like, oh, Bill Gates isn't a scientist, he and stuff there, but he runs, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that puts a lot of money into trying to eradicate a lot of these diseases around the world, right? So he's always talking, probably not as much hands on there, but I mean, he's talking to a whole bunch of people, especially doctors and epidemiologists and stuff like that, to plan and to institute these systems, to help fund these programs, right? So he's aware with it. He doesn't have the technical training and everything and stuff there, but he's working with the ones that do. And so for something general like this, he can talk about it, right? But I mean, listen to these schmucks, right? Like, oh, you're going to tell your conservative base that Bill Gates wants to microchip you, or that contact tracing is kind of some Orwellian world government control or something to be. Where's your scientific credentials, Stephen? Huh? Or the schmuck on the soundboard?
And it cannot be transmitted through human-to-human contact. Here's the thing. Do you know?
So again, that's a lie. Just keep spreading that lie. It's a well-debunked lie.
Do you know what my qualifications are?
What's that?
Personally, in dispensing medical advice?
Please give it to me.
About the same as Bill Gates.
Yeah.
They're
Right about
almost
the same.
exactly comparable.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Like zero. Now he's gonna go into like Microsoft failures. I think right about here.
Right.
All right.
So
Except
neither
you're-
are qualified.
Yeah, except you're
Got
not
it.
responsible for Vista.
Or Microsoft Paint.
Hey.
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 Or the Zune.
Get out of here. Testing in the community. You didn't have all the PCR machines.
Yeah. So the argument here, or that's what's being presented in the jokes, right? And so I'll pimp out Django's Science Lad video on jokes as rhetoric. It's a fantastic thing. So the argument making here is, oh, he made some products that didn't do well or didn't work the best or whatever. He ran a company that did that, so therefore what he says about something else is completely wrong. No, it's not, right? Like it's not, right? Doesn't mean he's wrong there. Now, if you'd have to go back and fact check that stuff there. It's being fallacious.
Activated to do those tests. So, some places listened to what was being said in January and did those things, and some did not.
Hold on a second.
There's also a lot of things we could have done in terms of innovation way before the epidemic showed up.
Wait, hold on a second.
We'll also,
some places
when we
listened
finally
to
go back through this thing, say,
them in January. He's talking about the
why?
World Health Organization. This matters. This is what matters the most about this. The left, because they have an echo chamber here, right? And they don't. Have you seen? By the way, has anyone seen them provide any sources at all? By the way,
Zero.
Just talking.
Sanjay Gupta jogging in short pants doesn't count.
No,
Okay.
does not count.
They haven't shown any sources whatsoever, and just now they're completely.
Now he's demanding sources and stuff here, and he's not providing, any sources for any of the claims he made, right? He's bringing stuff up and that doesn't agree with them, right? His sources are things that say the opposite.
Unaccountable, so they never get called on their shit. They never have to correct it. And Bill Gates right now just said, we could have been following the advice in January. In January, the World Health Organization, to whom you are the second largest donor outside of the United States as a whole, and the same World Health Organization, Bill Gates, whom you said were the best at handling these kinds of crises throughout the history of mankind, told the world through Twitter that it couldn't be transmitted from human to human contact. So if we were to follow their advice, Bill, what would we have done, Mr. Gates?
There's a lot.
So that was January 14th, as I said, and as things progressed, as we learned more, by late January, it was human-to-human transmission, right? And the talks of a global pandemic coming up, right? That was there, right? So at 14, we don't have the evidence right now to say that there. It's a possibility. It looks like maybe close contact with the family kind of passed around, but whether or not it's going to go to the population as a whole, we don't have that evidence yet, right? That's all they said on the 14th, right? That he's going to jump on there. Yeah, it's honestly, if I had no principles, I could do these guys' job far better, because at least I understand some of this stuff and I know how to actually research, and I could turn around and spin it for whatever reason I want to go and make it work. But yeah, they're dumb, they're loud, and conservatives just want to be told, the same thing that they already believe. And I think a lot of people on the left too and stuff as well, right? So if you look at a lot of like the Bernie or Buster types.
A lot of trials out in various countries. The list of things being tried is very long. The one I'd have to say I'm the most optimistic about is taking antibodies and manufacturing those, finding the best antibody that a human
Notice
made.
that Bill Gates speaks exactly like Trump, but because he's a nerd, he'll give him more respect. There are a lot of things. Let me just say exactly what he just said about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things that we could do, and we're looking into more things. The one that's most promising is the antibodies, and we're looking at the best antibodies. Just because he has glasses and hasn't been laid in half a century, we're supposed to respect his opinion more.
But
Yeah, wow, a lot there. So fun. Like if you would actually let Bill talk here instead of just talking over it and not paying any attention, like, oh, I heard something here that I don't like how he's talking about. He's not going to go into a big thing right here. And so the thing with the antibody thing he was talking about is you test on that there, you find an antibody that is most effective, and you use that around, you spread around it. So that's his most, how we do medicine and stuff, right? And developing things like vaccines. That's all he's talking about here. And he says that seems to be the most promising right now of a whole list of other things that we're looking at, right? And it's also on like a news segment, right? It's a short little thing, a little interview. They ask a few questions, and they go on there, right? So this is a 13-minute video, but by the end of here, they're already through what he said, right? And so most of it is them talking over it. It's not a very long clip to go through all the scientific studies, all the things we can do, breakdown of how coronavirus works, and it's just not the format for it, right? Yeah, there's a lot of things we would have done better here. But
hey, we're here to solve problems. This is the most important tool, the most urgent tool mankind has to invent.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're spending so much time talking about vaccines. But once we get to that point, there's 7 billion roughly people
By the way,
on the planet.
Assuming that we get a vaccine, and obviously I'm pro-vaccine for COVID, but that also, you're assuming that everyone is going to take it.
Or will want to take it. Flu vaccines every year that we have. There's this gigantic number of people that just don't do it, including myself for a long time.
What's the number of people who take flu vaccines per year? Reg can probably find. I think it's under 20%.
I would bet it's really.
So he gets shown wrong out there. It's about 40% per year that takes the vaccine. They'll show it later and then correct him. But but there'd be certain things you could require vaccinations for, before you're allowed back in to spread coronavirus around. Yeah. I don't think there's any video on him making fun of Trump for suggesting that. I bet it, after we get through, do this here, I bet we can look through his videos, and there's probably going to be a video where he tries to hand wave away what Trump said, as the left losing their minds over a joke or, just something said to troll. It's like, no, that wasn't said to troll or be a joke or anything like that. Or maybe he tries to defend it as something serious, like, right? I don't know, but I bet we look, if there's anything about those comments, it's going to be in that vein and not in like, Trump, you're an idiot for saying, hey, drink bleach or inject bleach and try to use UV light inside your body.
Low.
I think it's
bet
like
older
20%.
people take it a lot, right?
Yeah.
People susceptible to stuff like that would do it, but everybody else like, whatever. But why are they, again, moving the goalposts? Now it's about the vaccine.
But I mean, like, he's going to bring up a video here. I'll let it go here before it. I'll let it get to this other video he talked about, because I saw this other clip earlier when I responded to Salty Cracker. So I'll let him get to it here, but
we can't do anything until the vaccine.
So here's the thing that's really we need to be clear about with Bill Gates. You can bring this up as an overlay. He thinks we should have a permanent lockdown of everything until we have the vaccine.
No, absolutely not.
Well, I know. Don't argue with me.
No, I saw this clip. That is not what things here. The things won't go back to normal until we have a vaccine, right? In this clip, he talks about, in certain situations like schools and stuff, maybe open those up. Get here, but until we have it here, these big, large gatherings, these big sporting events, concerts, stuff like that, we're probably not going to be able to go back to that until we have a vaccine, right? It's just too many people crowded together that's going to spread the disease, right? And so that's basically what it's here. And there's other things he talks about that it brings into how you would mandate the vaccine, right? So you'd have, he brings up a situation where, hey, maybe we get a vaccine, we do it here, we have better testing controls and all this other stuff, but there's another country over here that doesn't have that stuff yet, or doesn't have that stuff in place. Well, so we can mandate a vaccine before you travel to these other countries to stop, the spread globally, that kind of thing. Right. So these are things here, pretty reasonable policy suggestions for trying to deal with this, prevent the pandemic spreading and doing all this other stuff, and how we get the world back to normal. But yeah, that's all that video is talking about here. It's not a permanent lockdown until this stuff here and shut everything down for it. It's like, no, that's not what's being said.
saying I'm
The
arguing
guy
with
with
him.
Saying they said it's going to come out in
$11
January.
billion is
Yeah.
like, guys, don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't
I'll
worry.
fund the
I'll be
economy.
safe.
Yeah, he's going to be sitting there with
Yeah.
his harem. We're all in this together, guys.
Everybody's out Mad Maxing it around.
And by,
Right,
by
yeah.
harem,
Petrol.
I mean Gerald's favorite, the cast of Cats.
We're all sitting
Really,
at
what
home.
I mean is he's going to have Idris Elba and the clones that he could afford to make
Oh my gosh.
in a hot tub.
Actually, just this flash
big
of
hot
Bill
tub.
Gates.
Again, see why his comedy career failed. Right? He's not a very funny dude.
Gates in a hot tub with
Yeah.
Mr. Mistopheles from Cats. I mean, oh,
You know
man.
the names. I don't.
Yeah.
Someone just asked, will there
All
ever
the
be a home
hairballs.
test kid for COVID-19? Are they idiots? There already is.
So it's
There's
like
already a home
40%.
antibody test. I think it's from Quest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think it's from Quest Labs. I'm sure. What was that was just brought
So I
up?
think that was the number,
Yeah.
of, the percentage of people that get the vaccine.
Flu vaccine?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the
Yeah.
number?
It hovers around 40%.
Looks like 40.
40. Okay, that's higher than I thought. I was
2018.
wrong. Quest Diagnostics, who came up with a
We're useless. Sorry.
a home antibody test.
We're already drunk.
Because I think it's pathology. There you go.
There it is.
Antibody test. So
Yeah.
that's an antibody test, not just a COVID test.
This isn't a home test at all. This isn't what he says it is. Right? So it's a make an appointment at one of the 2,200 blood draw centers Quest operates in the U.S. Sees results in 1 to 2 days after a blood draw. The company said in a statement the test is designed to have antibodies to the virus. Although Quest notes that it's unclear whether antibodies can provide protection against infection or how long any protection might last. So it's not actually testing if you have the virus. It's trying to find out if you have antibodies. But I mean, it's $119, right? To test this year.
But that tells you if you've ever actually had the disease. And then I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, pathology lab.
Yeah, what antibodies? Yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's really dumb, and it's a lot of it is like the harem stuff. A lot of it is Crowder's homophobia, or at least his stage persona is homophobia, right? Because he's one of the content creators that quite a lot who have met him off screen and stuff said that he's disingenuous. This isn't an act to send us all here. It's not like he doesn't believe half the stuff he says, which I mean is even more dangerous in there with all the stuff he says.
Laboratories, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's LabCorp. They have quick testing stations set up in Walgreens, in a lot of Walgreens.
Like mobile stations?
These are dumb questions. Now here's the challenge though right now, and I know all of us are not paying attention. We're all trying to see that Aryan question circulate.
Yeah,
We are. That's the only thing we're looking
That's all
for
we're
now.
looking for. So here is the challenge.
I don't know what he means by the Aryan question. I don't know. I'm confused at what he's trying to say there. Maybe I missed something. Chat, you've heard. What the hell he could be talking about in reference to? I mean, the only thing I can think of is, white people are the bad people or whatever for this here. Kind of blame, kind of the stock anti-SJW kind of conservative talking point. Right? That's about the only thing I can think of, and I don't know. It seems completely detached from what's being talked about. Yep. Oh no, yeah, I saw that stuff there. Right? So it's not this thing here. It's almost not quite as bad as going out and saying, "Hey, go chug some hydroxychloroquine." Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what comes up here. Yeah, if it ends up being more like the common cold, that's an issue. So we'll see what happens.
Or, I don't know if we can set a timer. For 2 minutes, we are not to talk. We are just to
wow.
listen to
Okay.
CNN.
And look for Aryan.
The
Listening's
promo code is
important.
quarantine because
They're gonna go to
earn
commercial.
this. For 2 minutes, we will watch, after which we'll see if there's anything to actually verify, confirm is correct, or fact check. But for 2 minutes,
All right.
Germany, for example, has done things well, but they
So I mean, we're gonna get general talk about it here, and we'll see what. So we got 2 minutes in this.
did have the benefit that they saw Italy being overwhelmed, and their exposure came after Italy, so they were able to respond. But now the exposure in Sweden and Germany were about at the same time. If you look at the IHME, which is a group that we fund, if you look at their forecast, you had Chris Murray on earlier, you look at the death rate in Sweden versus Germany that they forecast, it's way higher.
You know what? That's probably that might make sense there, right? Kind of a white genocide comment or dog whistle.
Higher up in Sweden. And so, you know, somebody can decide, a politician, if that's what really happens, was it worth it? You know, that's what this is all about, is if you open activity X, you know, are you willing to accept a somewhat higher health burden because of that? Sweden, you know, they made their decision. They seem happy with their decision, but they are forecast to have substantially higher death rate than most other countries.
One of the things in your paper that I thought was really particularly interesting were all the things that we need to learn about the virus, like if it is weather dependent, how many people never get symptoms but are contagious, what symptoms mean, you should get tested. I mean, there's so much we still don't know about this.
Yeah, there are many countries where the epidemic is not nearly as intense as we would expect. And so is it just a delayed effect? Is there something about the vaccines they get in their youth? You know, people think this BCG vaccine might, you know, be a helpful thing. We don't know. And so we have to assume it's going to be as bad in all those countries. You know, in the Southern Hemisphere, you have Brazil, Australia, South Africa have cases, so they're not completely immune, even though the force of infection may be less.
When you famously talked about preparing for a pandemic.
That's 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay, hold on a second.
So what is in there? The whole lot that's going to debunk. Now the big thing he's going to try to do is, Sweden's middle of the pack and stuff there, and so he's cherry picking to do this or that, and why not do all these other things, right? If we want to do all those other things, we'll have to look at the measures they took. Right, but then we get into some really other shitty comedy here. But you know, this is their criticism.
We're out of it.
Reg, the research bandit, please bring up Sweden and the fact that they failed to protect and acknowledge their infirm and their older people with their nursing homes. They had a similar situation to New York. And if you look at Sweden, Sweden is actually middle of the pack compared to Europe. He specifically took Germany and Sweden because he tried to take a country that had very severe measures and also took an early stance. And frankly, they have different demographics comparing it directly to Sweden, which is directly middle of the pack. You know what would be an accurate comparison as well would be Sweden versus Belgium, Sweden versus France, Sweden versus UK, Sweden versus Spain, Italy. I don't know why he only picked Germany, because it's the one country, I guess, in Western civilization that is actually doing significantly better than the United States, and that's because of a very homogenous culture, an authoritarian government who's very comfortable with removing people's private.
And oh boy, where does homogenous culture have anything to do with this effect? And all, like, get into the white nationalism stuff, and it's gonna get worse. Like, it tries to play it off the joke, but I mean, like I said, Django Science Lad does a good video, Jokes Are Rhetoric, right? When we make a joke, there's some premise or argument that we're trying to get you to accept. Do it.
Rights, and they suck. Here's the thing: Germany, good on you. You got coronavirus right, but when it comes to world wars, you're responsible for still all of them. If we're keeping a tally, so it's a trade-off.
I mean, this pivot, right? Like he's got nothing. He's got nothing to say here. He's gonna say, well, Germany started World War I and World War II, and Germany didn't start World War I, right? That was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand that triggered all that stuff that happened with all the different alliances and stuff they had built. But I mean, to run to that, it's like, Germany did a good job on here. But Germany, the Nazis or all this other stuff. Like, for someone who likes to complain about how the left goes to Nazis so much in here, right? This is like the most frivolous comparison. Like frivolous was the right word, but the least substantial thing that you could try to do to connect, like completely unconnected, right, to anything. Just like, Germany, you're the Nazis. Even though what you did worked and you don't have the issues that a lot of the other countries are having, right? Yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It's just, kind of, what would be like a magician's trick, right? So what do they call it when you try to get their attention over here so you don't see what they're doing with their other hand, right? What is that called? You probably know that one, Maddie.
Just bring up the deaths per million and look at Sweden. They didn't take any measures at all, which we are not even advocating, and they're far better off than some countries who took very strict measures. Not saying they're the best, not saying they're the worst.
Right.
But that's actually the strongest counter argument to what Bill Gates is saying, because if Sweden were definitively the best, then we would know, and we'd be basing it off that data. If it were definitively the worst, he would have the best case here that he could make. Instead, it's right. It's like Starsky and Hutch, where they were trying to find out if a guy was named Big because he was small, ironic, and he's 5'10", which is just about average. That's Sweden.
No. I know, but I mean, a lot of the ones, that took some of the harsh things, right? So he's probably, with the graph, I have that pulled up. I have that. Nope, I deleted it. But anyways, Italy took a lot of the very, very harsh lockdown measures because it had spread so wildly out of there. So it was like a reactive type of policy through there. So there was no proactive or anything there. So he's trying to Sweden's not doing bad as Italy, and Italy did all these big lockdowns. So not doing anything would have been just fine, right? And it's like, no, hold on. Italy did all those lockdowns because the thing got crazy first. They weren't proactive in treating it there, and unfortunately, it was lack of information, right, and how to deal with all this stuff here. And then when they got swarmed and hit real hard, it's like, all right, we're gonna have to take the most drastic measures because it's all over the place. Yeah, sleight of hand. All right, but I mean that does it for that video. But not much out here. Then we're gonna get into the fun Obamagate.